Hi, everyone. We're joined again with Dr. Jameson Natwick here to continue our conversation about narcissism. And today we want to answer the question, how do I know I've gone through narcissistic abuse? So, Jameson, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think when we how do we know we've gone through narcissistic abuse? I mean, the first thing we have to do is that is a step to be like, I need to pause and look at my relationship, like whether this is with a significant other, whether this is with a family member or an individual in your life, and reflect upon the relationship, because this is like the first step in understanding this is we have to pause and look at it and try and look at it in maybe a new way. And maybe this is what I really hope this episode does, is to help highlight and give you a different lens to look at these relationships. And Veronica, if I can kind of pose a question to you, like, how did you know, or when did you start to investigate or really look at, like, when you started to realize, like, oh, what I'm experiencing may not be good. Maybe it
Yeah,
is narcissistic abuse.
I know. Honestly, it's a great question because I had no idea what I was experiencing in a dysfunctional relationship. And honestly, it was by the grace of God where I stumbled onto a YouTube video where two people were discussing narcissism. And to a T, it just accurately, finally described the circumstances and the situation that I found myself in. And I felt so relieved because I was finally able to label something and understand it. But at the same time, I felt very just exhausted because I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this now? But yeah, you're right. I didn't know what it was that I was going through, but I started to see patterns. And the big thing that I noticed was that it felt like everything, I was being blamed for everything, even when it went against factual evidence. And I felt like I started to need to document everything in order to convince myself that I wasn't going crazy. And that was a big thing that I noticed when you go through something like narcissistic abuse is they make these people want you to feel crazy because they want to perpetuate their lies and make you feel like you can't trust yourself. So it was a process of documentation, and then observing and noticing that those two things didn't match up whatsoever. And obviously, there's a lot of those telltale signs like the gaslighting, the manipulation, seeing how they're smearing your name, and just mostly seeing how you're not dealing with someone who's rational. A rational person will assess the pros and cons of a situation and decide whether or not it makes sense to proceed. These people are so self centered and have so much self interest that they will destroy you in the process to accomplish whatever their goal is, even if their goal is completely irrational. And I mean, I've seen this a lot in situations where people have gone through this with court cases, with child custody, etc. Like a narcissist will destroy their kids' lives just to get back at their ex. Like these are not rational, normal things that a sane person would do. So yeah, the way that I discovered it was honestly by the grace of God because I didn't know, but I knew something was off. Something was just really off. I could really sense that, and it took me stepping away from the situation to be able to reflect on that. But I'm sure you have more to add to that from your
Well,
experience dealing with people.
I love that you said I felt like something was off, because I think there's this tension within individuals who are in relationship with a narcissist where it's like I can't trust myself because that is the predominant narrative from a narcissist. Like, I'm going to make you doubt everything, and it's this great like, and then there's the tension of, but deep down in my gut something is saying to me something is off, this isn't right. And that's a horrible place to be when we have that tension in us, and
Mm-hmm.
it can be under the surface and we really don't pay a lot of attention. But I mean, it's part of that horrible feeling where we're like living, I don't trust myself, so can I trust this sense that something's off? So I think part of it is like, by the grace of God, having that moment where you're like, I am going to trust it. And then that allowed for an opening of documentation
Mm-hmm.
and observation to be like, whoa, what I am seeing, I am not liking. I'm seeing it in a different way. Because I think that's any abuse cycle, and narcissists are masters at this, is what any abuse cycle will do is it's all about isolation. And even so, that can be from friends and family, good people in your life, from God. but also from ourself. We get isolated that the way we view our world and ourself becomes so singular, and we want to
Yeah.
break that open. And I think that's part of the first step. And this is sometimes like this could then maybe reaching out to a trusted friend, being like, I need to talk to you about this relationship. Or maybe you're wanting to be like, you know what, I want to get connected to a professional and then be able to talk through this in with a person who is outside of this situation, who also has training to see things in a new way. Because that is really important to be
Mhm.
able to trust yourself, start seeing things in a new way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I just might add to that as someone who's kind of lived it, unfortunately, you don't know you're being abused until you step away from it and then reflect back. And it took me probably 2 or 3 years after to realize what I went through was not normal. And it kind of was a big puzzle that I had to put back together, and also a big ball of yarn that I had to unwind. It was just all a big mess. I'm like, what did I go through? How did I get myself into this? And something that I also hear from a lot of people who've gone through narcissistic abuse is it's a lot of it's feelings initially, right? You have these feelings where something's off, or why do I feel like I always have to walk on eggshells? Why is it that no matter whatever I do, this person's always getting mad at me? Why am I always being yelled at? Why am I always getting in trouble? You just have this pattern of irrational reactions to something that you're doing that a normal, sane person would not operate or act in the same way. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that we should add to this. How does someone know that they've been through narcissistic abuse?
Well, I want to add, I like with a lot of people I've worked with, it's really easy as you go through this discernment, I'm going to call it that, of like, am I in a narcissistic abusive relationship, to feel confused um, and lean into it. It's okay to be confused.
Mhm.
And it's also really hard. We don't like it. We're going to want answers right away because we have a lot of feelings that we don't like. And we don't like it when our feelings are unpleasant and all of that. But it is this, it's okay to be confused because as you said, it took, I think you said 2 years before you started, like before it really was clear. And you're like, this isn't normal. Like, I
Yeah.
need change. And part of that is like, okay, I'm going to lean in and I'm going to start asking hard questions. I'm going to start trusting myself. And even when it feels confusing, it's okay to keep like moving forward slowly and to really be diligent about like, I want to make sure that I am not rushing too fast, but I'm also not ignoring things. And
Yes.
sometimes things take a while for us to fully comprehend, um, for us to see it in a new way, which is really hard when we just want change right away or we want answers right away.
I love what you said there. And I totally agree with you. Like, seek counsel, seek help, and talk to someone like a professional who can try to unpack things for you, and lean into God as well. I mean, God has ways, like through me, He spoke to me through a YouTube video. It was very random. And I'll link below in this episode. There's a really great blog that we have on our website on Catholic Narc Recovery that talks about a bunch of terms that are more specific to narcissistic abuse. So take a read of that. It might help you kind of visualize or understand if what you've experienced is similar to this. And I just want to remind everyone that, abuse is not your fault. If you're being manipulated by someone, that's that person's problem that they're projecting onto you. So hang in there. I know it's difficult. I'll leave us off with a psalm reading here from Psalm 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. So just remember, God is always with you through this season, and He's got great things in store for you. So that will conclude this question. Thanks so much.